want to get back to something I said at the top of the show about us being kind of constantly involved in this process of comparing to the future and encountering this novelty. So going off that quote that you just read, partway through the chapter, I want to read this paragraph. He writes, "You also have a model of the present, constantly operative. You understand your somewhat subordinate position within a corporation, which is your importance relative to the others above and below you in the hierarchy. You understand the significance of those experiences that occur regularly while you are doing your job. You know who you can give orders to, who you have to listen to, who is doing a good job, who can be safely ignored, and so on. You are always comparing this present unsatisfactory condition to that of your ideal, which is you, increasingly respected, powerful, rich, and happy, free of anxiety and suffering, climbing towards your ultimate success. You are unceasingly involved in attempts to transform the present as you currently understand it into the future as you hope it will be. Your actions are designed to produce your ideal, designed to transform the present into something ever more closely resembling what you want. You are confident in your model of reality in your story. When you put it into action, you get results." Now, I just want to get a bit deeper into this idea of being, of unceasingly comparing, because like I mentioned, I think this is a process that goes on automatically. It doesn't have to be conscious. You can be aware of your position in the hierarchy, but you can also not be aware that you're aware of it. Like we have this, we might have this awareness that, okay, well, that person's below me in the social hierarchy. I can push them around, but I have to really brown nose or be teacher's pet towards whoever in the company or a teacher or a professor, whatever. You've got this kind of automatic awareness of the social hierarchy, and Peterson talks about this in 12 Rules for Life 2 in the Lobster chapter. Just that this is this process that goes on in all, in the vast majority of life forms, potentially all of them, this awareness of social hierarchy. But you don't actually have to be consciously aware of it. You can have some people just kind of going through the motions that, without thinking about it, know these things. So they treat other people as dirt because they know they're below them, and they suck up to the boss because they know that'll get them good things. But they haven't actually identified consciously that these things are going on. If you're to ask them what about this, they wouldn't be able to necessarily verbalize this awareness of it. So, and I think this applies to so many different levels and facets, because we are such complex things. We're constantly engaged in so many goals that we're not aware of. And this could be, you can start the picture at the lowest level of just your biology. Like there's so many things going on in your biology that you're not consciously aware of. So I think Peterson gets into this, how you, like on the level of digestion or respiration or blood circulation, it's like these things are going on in your body without your awareness. And there are tons of goal-directed behaviors going on in your cells and all the systems of your body that you're not consciously aware of. You might get signals of them every once in a while in the form of hunger or the need to go to the bathroom or feeling too hot or too cold, but they haven't. The processes themselves haven't raised themselves to the level of consciousness. And at the same time, that's happening probably for a lot of people in their daily lives, in their jobs, in their relationships, that partially at least, because they haven't analyzed those things and really thought them and pondered on them, they are acting like effectively as automatons in their life without having examined these things. So you have this extremely vague goal of where you want to be in your relationship, for instance, or what your career goals are, or your goals in your job. So this would be just like the life of coasting through things, just expecting things to happen the way you want them to happen, even though you don't really have a great idea of what you want to happen in the first place. Mm-hmm. So this process of constantly comparing is still going on. Like you've got this vague idea of a better relationship, but because you're not even sure of what the goal is, you don't have a plan, you don't know what to change, what to do differently, what to keep doing, you just kind of keep going through the motions because in the vague hope that you might reach that goal, but you're not going to get there, or at the very least, it's going to be very, very slow. Like you might not get there before you die because you haven't elaborated and articulated what the actual goal is. So this gets into why Peterson is always recommending his future authoring program is to actually make the plan, because when you actually make the plan verbal, when you actually put it into a form, then you can actually see it. You can see something that beforehand was just this vague, like miasmus, is that a word? Just diaphanous thing, this foggy notion of what the future might be. But when you actually fill in the detail and kind of zoom in on that to get a high definition picture of what that is, then you can get into your plans. You can start seeing what the actual things you could be doing differently are, what things that you're not doing that you have to be doing, or maybe that your goal, you don't even actually want that goal. You had this vague goal, let's say, of this future position in your job that you were striving towards in all these ways that you weren't even really consciously aware of. But now when you look at it, you realize you don't even like your job. You don't even want to be in this position. You don't want to be manager because you would rather be doing something else completely. That vague goal that you had in mind wasn't even applicable to the job that you were in right now. The vague feeling that you had was that you wanted like some kind of vocational fulfillment in a completely different area. He gives a couple examples of that too, of the guy that goes into the meeting with these high expectations of how he's going to perform and what he's going to say and how everyone's going to love him. And then afterwards he thinks he did a great job, and then he gets called into the boss's office, and she tells him, you're not cut out for this. Everyone hates you, essentially. You act like a total jerk in meetings. And the guy says, oh, what? Gets all angry. Oh, that lady, that boss is a bitch. And then he gets home, and after stewing for a month or two, realizes that he never liked the job in the first place, and he always wanted to do something else. Just that there's that kind of example. So there is a definite positive, I guess, and effective, what's the word? There's something positive and effective about articulating for yourself what your goals actually are, about determining what they are, and then being able to put a plan into action. And that, of course, gets into Stephen Covey's book that we talked about a couple weeks ago, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, we've discussed this in the past. I can't remember if it was Alfred North Whitehead or if it was Collingwood, but how they defined what it meant to be a rational being. And in order to be a rational being, you had to have a reason for the things that you do. And that was part of the meaning of the word rational. And, when you're living your life based on these, fuzzy, vague goals, it's fairly irrational. I mean, you could maybe have some kind of a reason, like, oh, I want to be rich. But I mean, have you really, did you, dig deep down? Why did you want to be rich? Well, to blah, 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 blah. What is the real core reason? What is the real mission in your life? And like you said, that does go back to, like all the different exercises and work behind, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is to develop someone who's rational in a way that is oriented towards others, serving others and making their lives better, and being an effective person in your own life as well. But in Peterson, throughout this chapter, he really lays it out really in a stunning way, so that by the time you're done with this portion of the chapter that we're talking about, you come away with the sense that people are mostly, like maybe 99%, all of us 99%, like artificially intelligent. And all these systems, all these drives that we have are programmed, and they make decisions. They operate, they affect our consciousness, so that we're hungry or we're thirsty or we're angry or we're afraid, and all these different things. But until it seems to me, until you are able to say that you do have a reason, and you're testing the things that you're doing against a reason that is that subordinates all these other drives, then it's hard to say that you really do have yourself, like an individual consciousness, character, or personality, anything like that. And as you were pointing out, Harrison, this requires, in some way, it seems like it requires kind of an acceptance of the unknown and of the chaos, because when you accept that the reasons that you're doing things are not well thought out or silly or stupid, now you are left with this huge, vast array of potential of the unknown that is like it's both frightening in one sense, and like you pointed out, Ilan, there is something hopeful about it too. But primarily, it's frightening. You start questioning everything everything that you thought, everything you were taught. Your mind is going back through your history, the decisions that you made that got you to where you were at. Were they good decisions? Can you even remember the reasons why you made the decisions? The past is this vast sea of pure amorphous, craziness. For a lot of people, we say you read an autobiography and it seems like, oh, and then I did this because of this, and then I did that, and I, and that and that. But for just about everybody, the past is just like a holy crap, was that a train wreck? I'm glad I'm glad I made it through that, and am still able to tell the tale. But I think that's one of the benefits to reading Maps of Meaning, is because it gives you a diagram, kind of a template for knowing what it means to be human in that way. You get a sense. He really paints the picture that of all the different systems that are involved in all of the things that we think that make us unique, our effective subjective experiences that we think make us unique. We see he goes all the way down to rats and rodents, and you see like, wow, these rodents, when they see a cat come around, they just scream and scream and scream for up to like 7 or 8 hours, and then they go back to doing similar kinds of activities that we do as human beings. They have similar kinds of socializing and all that stuff, and they've got their their little rat parties, I'm sure, and all that kind of stuff. But the same effective art. I don't know if you want to say it's artificially intelligent, but that's just what I'm going to rest with for right now. Is that the same artificially intelligent kind of foundation for behavior and experience that we have, but we also have the potential through manipulating objects, with our speech, with our hands, with our minds, intellectually. We can probe, the intentions that we have, the intentions that others have, and we can seek to find goals that are better and completely different maps than the ones that we had previously. And it's when you start doing that, then you're venturing into a territory that is completely bizarre, because you don't have a map for it whatsoever. And maybe you get to a point where nobody has a map for it. And that's where I think you're talking about individuals who are truly pioneers, that they go into a territory where nobody has ever been before. And it could be psychologically, like Peterson, or other authors that we've spoke about, like Andrew Lobachevsky and his writings on the activities of psychopaths in positions of power, and how his take on how these major evil regimes take form. But individuals who are thrust into the unknown, into the chaos, but they still retain that creative, hopeful ability to bring back something, that of value, of supreme value in many cases for other people, and they do it with they have some spectacularly different map than just us average slubs. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, what you said reminded me of a few things. One was the book that we did a show on some time ago called The Strange Order of Things, which lays out the groundwork for how we have these systems that were built upon that are designed, it would seem, to establish homeostasis, this homeostatic imperative, this balance within ourselves that would be the kind of AI you're talking about. They're so automatic. They're so designed, that we're largely unconscious of them. But what differs from ourselves and, say, rats is at least biologically, is our prefrontal cortex that he discusses a little bit in this chapter, and at least our capacity and potential to conceptualize time and future goals, and to think in the abstract in such a way that we are capable of assessing our values, reassessing them, looking at them from different perspectives. And that's one of our gifts, again, at least in potential, where the more we become conscious of them, the more there is an active thinking that may not always be easy, but that we choose to engage in. The more we do this, the more kind of control, or at least ability to respond to the chaos we can give ourselves. And another thing, I'm glad you brought up Lovaczewski, Corey, because again, and I think I've said this on a previous show, Jordan Peterson is a ponerologist. He is looking at the pathology of society and offering them an alternative, a way out, another way to respond to the pathological influences of movements that would instill in a person the motivation or the impetus to react instead of to assess and to respond. And that's really one of his great values. And the irony, of course, and we've said this before too, is that he's vilified and demonized and accused of being exactly the thing that he's trying to point out to people. And it's incredible to read critiques of this guy. People just don't want to get it. They don't want to take responsibility for their own choices and for the things that they are assuming to be true. They're making presumptions about how things work and who they are, left, right, and center. And his life's work is no. You want to consider these issues. You want to be thinking about your own story, your own map of values that's going to bring you forward in life with as few chaotic elements as possible, or at least the mechanisms, the strength, and the resources to respond to the chaos. Which reminds me of another thing that he had written in this chapter. He says that deviations from desired outcome constitute relatively novel events, indicative of errors in presumption, either at the level of analysis of current state, process, or ideal future. Such mismatches, unpredictable, non-redundant, or novel occurrences, constantly comprise the most intrinsically meaningful, interesting elements of the human experiential field. This interest and meaning signifies the presence of new information and constitutes a prepotent stimulus for human and animal action. It is where the unpredictable emerges that the possibility for all new and useful information exists. It is during the process of exploration of the unpredictable or unexpected that all knowledge and wisdom is generated, all boundaries of adapted competence extended, all foreign territory explored, mapped, and mastered. The eternally extant domain of the unknown therefore constitutes the matrix from which all conditional knowledge emerges. Everything presently known to each, everything rendered predictable, was at one time unknown to all and had to be rendered predictable, beneficial at best, irrelevant at worst, as a consequence of active exploration-driven adaptation. The matrix is of indeterminable breadth. Despite our great storehouse of culture, despite the wisdom bequeathed to us by our ancestors, we are still fundamentally ignorant and will remain so, no matter how much we learn. The domain of the unknown surrounds us like an ocean surrounds an island. We can increase the area of the island, but we never take away much from the sea. So when you mentioned the sea before and how we, how much there is to know, it reminded me of that quote, which is pretty wonderful, I think. But he seems to be saying two things at the same time. One is we're never going to, knowledge is infinite. There's a sea of information. By the same token, it's out of this kind of pioneering spirit, as you said, that we're gonna grow, that we're gonna find uses for knowledge and information in ways that can be of service to others and to ourselves.
Right, and that it's not like everybody's got to be a pioneer, but rather that this this special class of people or whatever is a distinct class, and there's definitely a distinct attitude taken towards the unknown that Peterson's work kind of serves as a blueprint almost, for
A map?
no.
Of meaning?
Absolutely not. None of those things. But yeah, it's as like a map
Corey's being
for.
disagreeable.
No, I'm not. Okay. Anyway, so I wanted to read this quote because I thought it was really interesting. It's a little bit off of what we've been discussing, but I was thinking about people and their self-knowledge, and it's easy, I think, for people to get caught up in the past. But I think a certain objective understanding of your past, your upbringing, is good. And I thought that this quote from Peterson really hit the nail on the head. He wrote, "Past experience, learning, does not merely condition, rather, such experience determines the precise nature of the framework of reference or context that will be brought to bear on the analysis of any given situation. This cognitive frame of reference acts as the intermediary between past learning, present experience, and future desire. This intermediary is a valid object of scientific exploration, a phenomenon as real as anything abstracted is real, and far more parsimonious and accessible as such a phenomenon than the simple, non-interpreted, and non-measurable, in any case, sum total of reinforcement history." All the things that have happened to you, whatever, all the times that you stubbed your toe. "Frameworks of reference, influenced in their structure by learning, specify the valence of ongoing experience, determine what might be regarded in a given time and place as good, bad, or indifferent. Furthermore, inferences about the nature of the framework of reference governing the behavior of others, that is, looking at the world through the eyes of another, may produce results that are more useful, more broadly generalizable as insights into the personality of another, and less demanding of cognitive resources than attempts to understand the details of a given person's reinforcement history." And so I was thinking that it's, and that what he's saying there, it seems like it's good to have basically a profile of who you would be if you weren't you. You know what I'm saying? Like you know this person, you know yourself, you know the experiences that you've had, and now you kind of just extrapolate that out. Now, okay, so if I knew somebody else who had these same experiences, what kind of a person would I think they would be? How do I think they would react towards these other things? And then also same if you develop profiles of other people around you, as you get to know them and you understand, by profile, I'm talking about that framework of reference, of valences, about what this person considers good, what that person considers bad, and it goes hand in hand with what we were talking about on Stephen Covey's show in terms of being proactive and knowing what adds to the emotional bank account that you and another person share, and the trust bank account versus what actually detracts from it. Because I know one person making fun of them adds to the emotional bank account, because I know that their reinforcement history. Another person, you make fun of them, and it's like, oh my God, this, now we're going to have a fight, now it's a war. It's something like that. I just thought it was an interesting quote from that from this chapter of the book.
Mm-hmm.